Let's look slightly beyond Kenya to the region around Kenya. And perhaps the reason people are worried about the protests in Kenya is because the picture of democracy in East Africa doesn't look particularly good. We have recent elections in Tanzania, your neighbour. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, the winner, declared 97% support. That's like North Korea. Is there still democracy in Tanzania?
It's not for me to judge Tanzania. It is...
It seems a bit fishy, 97%, doesn't it?
Well, in a democracy, for example, in Kenya, you can never get 96%.
So it's not a democracy anymore then?
That is you saying. Every country have a way of them doing their stuff. But I think the primary thing is democracy is the best governance system. It's not tidy always. It is not always easy, you know, because there are all manner of moving parts. But I think we must work together to ensure that we protect democracy.
So look at one of your other neighbours, Uganda.
You know? So I think we should stick to democracy, and we must always give ourselves the opportunity to listen to the alternative view, to look at the alternative without injecting violence into the equation.
So look at one of your other neighbours, yes. Uganda. Elections coming up very soon. President Museveni has been there for nearly 4 decades, and there were real questions about whether there were free and fair elections last time. His opponent, Bobby Wine, was under effective house arrest. How worried are you about those elections and whether they're going to be free and fair? Because this affects the climate of the whole region, does it not?
I attended President Museveni's swearing in last election, and I think he got 57% of the vote. He didn't get 90. So I think there is room for us to work on democracy is work in progress. And I think it spans different, different stages. There are countries like Kenya that are way ahead. There are others that are catching up. There are others that are still not yet started. And we see it changing everywhere. We see, for example, in the West, people moving more right, others moving in the left, and everything in between. So there is a dynamic globally that is changing, and society is responding to different characters. Who expected, for example, that we would have the kind of situation we had in the US in the previous election? Nobody expected that Congress would be attacked, that Capitol Hill would be attacked. That looked like far-fetched. Today, that's the world we live in. I mean, there is all manner of issues coming up. And we need to, as leaders, we need to balance, we need to look at it and see how we can.
I want to raise some more of those issues on the African continent, moving to the Democratic Republic of Congo. You mentioned the other thing the protesters talk about is what human rights groups call enforced disappearances. 2024, it's reported more than 80 people, critics of the government, disappeared. You've got them?
I can tell you, none of those people. I have told them. I have told people who claim that so-and-so has disappeared to step forward and tell the country who are these, when were they abducted, and many of the stories that you hear are people who when you tell them to come out, they don't. They just want to make general statements. And I'm telling you, we are coming from a dangerous background where, forget about people disappearing, where bodies were recovered from all manner of places.
You got directly involved. You told at one point police to shoot protesters in the legs. Surely live fire is not something that should be used in protests. Do you regret those comments?
I don't regret those comments at all, because the law allows the police to use force when other people's lives are in danger.
Surely there are ways of doing that without using live ammunition.
That is according to you. I think the police know what they need to do. And the police, by the way, understand that it is within their purview. That is why when I came into office, I ensured that the police was independent. the police carried out their responsibilities independently.
Well, you say independent. You're telling the police to shoot protesters in the legs. That
But
sounds like you're ordering the police.
No, there is nowhere in the law that allows me to order the police.
You shouldn't ban anything. If you are angry, you can demonstrate. You can stand on the. You go in the Kororo and you show that we are not happy. You don't attack anybody. Why do you attack? Just show that I'm not happy. I don't agree with what you are doing. But you don't destroy, because suppose you now take over now. You are the new government. Where will you start? If you have already banned all these, why don't you want to take over something that is
established?
Is established. What's the problem? So I think Todongia needs to educate us. Yeah, you have people saying factory young wind. There is no factory young wind here in Uganda. All the factories are ours. If I go to India and build a factory there, it will be a factory of India. They will not say the factory Owente or Uganda. It will be my factory, but in India. It's part of the Indian wealth. Okay?
Tumeanza kuona mtiririko au mwenendo wa wanaharakati ndani ya region yetu hii kuanza kuvamia na kuingilia mambo yetu huku. Sasa kama kwao wameshadhibitiwa, wasije kutuharibia huku. Tusitoe nafasi. Walishaharibu kwao, walishavuruga kwao. Nchi iliyobaki haijaharibika. Watu wako na usalama na amani na utulivu ni hapa kwetu. Kuna majaribio kadhaa. Niwaombe sana vyombo vya ulinzi na usalama na nyinyi wasimamizi wa sera zetu nje kutoa nafasi kwa watovu wa adabu wa nchi nyingine kuja kutovuka hapa kwetu. Hapana. Nimeona klipu kadhaa za kunisema niko bias na nini. Nalofanya ni kulinda nchi yangu na ndio wajibu niliopewa. Kwa hiyo hatutatoa nafasi kwa kiumbe yoyote kuja kutuvurugia hapa. Awe yupo ndani au anatoka nje. Hatutatoa hiyo nafasi.
I think East Africa is sliding slowly into a dictator rule. The three countries, which is Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, having these three presidents, Samia Suluhu, Museveni, and William Ruto, I'm suspecting they are uniting and working together. Because just recently, I have seen 2 Kenyans were being abducted in Uganda, tortured. The same is happening in Kenya. When the opposition leader of Uganda came to Kenya, they abducted him and took him back to Uganda. And what's happening in Tanzania? William Ruto was asked in one of the interview, I think with the BBC, and he was unable to defend nor to deny. He said it was democracy. Museveni is not talking anything. This is leaving me with questions. Where is these 3 countries going? I think it is a trinity of terror. And they thought nobody would expose this. They thought East Africans will keep quiet or keep afraid or keep confused. But the truth has finally reached my desk here in New Africa. And today, I'm going to break something that will shake East Africa to its core. Hello, family. Today, we speak as investigators because we just want to speak as the witnesses of history and uncover a truth that has been hiding in plain sight across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. If you are very keen in the politics of these 3 countries, you will see something. Because I've been following events across East Africa for years, and I have watched political patterns repeat themselves. I have watched leaders deny what the people feel every day. But recently, the science became too loud, too sharp, and you can't ignore that. Because what I discovered is not just an isolated problem. It is not one country falling, or it's not a leader abusing power. It is a regional shift, a dangerous slide, and East Africa is walking straight into it. East Africa is sliding into authoritarian rule, not through loud declarations, not through official announcement, but through a quiet, systematic tightening of power. And what I discovered about East Africa new power play is this. When I began studying the patterns that is happening around the region, I saw the same tactics repeating: silencing of opponents, disappearing of critical voices, unexplained arrest, fear being used as political language. And the most shocking part, these tactics are not hidden. They are happening openly, fearlessly, and with increasing boldness. It is as if the leaders across the region feel untouchable. The political environment is being reshaped by intimidation. People who speak up vanish. People who question disappear. People who resist suddenly suffer accidents. The old colonial method has returned, but this time it's used by the African government and African citizens. This time it's used by leaders who claim to be liberators. It is used and applied with strategies that mirror what Europe did in the early 20th centuries. The pattern is not accidental, it is deliberate, it is coordinated, and it is controlled. Authoritarian rule never arrives through a single big moment. It arrives through small steps, small decisions, small cracks that become deep fractures. I have watched each of these steps unfolding across East Africa, and they form a disturbing timeline. Across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, opposition politics is slowly being criminalized, not through fair election or fair debates, political debates, but through arrest, disappearance, and intimidation. Anyone who tries to challenge power becomes a threat to be removed, not persuaded, but removed and silenced. See what has happened in Tanzania. See what is happening in Uganda. With the demise of Raila Amolo Odinga in Kenya, I wonder what will go on. Right now, government begins to shape narrative. They wanted to control information. They attack journalists. They shut down critical media. They threaten bloggers and activists. And in some cases, internet blackouts become political weapons, like what happened in TZ during the protests, during the election. Internet blackout is not now a national security, but to block youths from organizing, to block youths from spreading. When we talk about election, it's not free and fair. There is a control of election. Election cycles in East Africa have become sections of fear instead of sessions of democracy. People die. Polls become battlegrounds. Citizens vote with fear in their hearts instead of hope in their hearts. And after that, we see violence. We see bloodshed. We see manipulations. And the winners always seem predetermined. Again, another pattern, we think the control through fear. Fear is the strongest political tool. Fear makes citizens silent. Fear makes journalists cautious. Fear makes the youth step back instead of stepping forward. But fear is also exposes something powerful. Fear exposes when a government starts using fear, it shows that the people are stronger than they think. Fear is not used by a confident government, it is used by insecure ones. Now, for example, the rising culture of disappearance, it is across East Africa. Let me start with Kenya, for example. Kenya is known globally as a democratic example, but beneath that surface lies a darker reality, a growing pattern of forced disappearance. People who criticize the state vanish. Young men in informal statements vanish. Activists vanish. Opposition organizers vanish. And those who return, if they return, they speak about torture, speak about threats, or psychological intimidation. And some never speak again. Some never return. Some are found lifeless, and some remain missing forever. What shocked me in my investigation is how normalized it has become. How ordinary Kenyans talk about disappearance like a weather pattern, like something that just happened, like something unavoidable. And this normalization is how dictatorship begins. When the extraordinary becomes ordinary, when cruelty becomes routine, when fear becomes a lifestyle, that's how dictator begin. Kenya is not sliding into authoritarian rule by accident. The signs are very, very clear. Control over activists, control of political threats, control of information, control of streets through fear. Then, when you look at Tanzania, it's a nation that has experienced some of the most disturbing election season in East Africa recently. And what people don't know is how calculated the violence has become. During election periods, intimidation rises. People vanished, others were beaten. Some lost their lives for just simply wanting a better future. And this message is simple. Do not challenge power. Do not ask questions. Do not imagine change. That was the question that Tanzanian leaders were passing to the citizens. The political system in Tanzania is designed to discourage courage. It pushes boldness, or it punishes boldness, it punishes opposition, it punishes anyone who dare speak. When I found in my research was that many citizens feel trapped. Yes, they love the country, they respect peace, but peace cannot exist without freedom. Peace cannot be manufactured through fear. Tanzania pattern is clear. Violence during election is not accidental, it is strategic. It is part of the bigger machinery of control. It is part of a system that ensures that some power structure remain unchallenged. When you go to Uganda, the country that has embraced authoritarian tactics with shocking boldness, Uganda is the blueprint of how authoritarian rule becomes normalized. Opposition figures are attacked, youths are arrested, activists vanish, and the leadership does not hide it. Uganda has mastered the politics of fear. The military is everywhere. Dissent is treated as treason. Election feels like a military operation instead of democratic event. And what shocked me the most in my research is how confident the system has become. There is no hesitation, no shame, no attempt to hide the reparations. And in the most blatant form of authoritarianism in East Africa, clear and visible and undeniable. When you put Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda side by side, a pattern emerges that is impossible to ignore. A regional pattern, a coordinated shift towards a strong man rule. In my investigation, I realized East Africa is being shaped by three types of leaders: the charismatic authoritarian, the silent dictator, and the bold dictator. Uganda represents bold authoritarianism, bold dictatorship, loud, unapologetic, and fearless. Tanzania represents silent dictators, controlled, systematic, strategic. Kenya represents charismatic dictatorship, wrapped in democracy, but powered by fear. Together, the three models create a triangle of power, a triangle of fear, and a triangle of control. And this is not by accident. This is the new East African political identity. And it is dangerous and very, very dangerous. Many people still imagine dictator as so loud, uniform-wearing military rulers. They imagine huge speeches, iron fist, and visible brutality, but that's not how modern dictator works. Today, dictatorship is quieter, smarter, cleaner, and more dangerous. The new era of dictatorship uses laws to silence, uses court to justify repressions, uses police instead of military tanks. It uses media narrative instead of public beatings. And this is why many East Africans don't fully see what is happening. Because we are not watching an old-style dictatorship we learned in the history class. We are watching the birth of modern political control, psychological, digital, economical, and legal. Dictatorship rule today has a suit and a tie, speaks English, smiles for the camera, and behind that smile, it punishes dissent with surgical precision. As I continued researching, I discovered a clear playbook, a strategic repeated across all three countries. Every step is predictable, intentional, and effective. And here's the new East African formula for authoritarian control. Number 1, legalized intimidation. Instead of openly attacking opposition, government creates vague laws that criminalize, criticize the state, laws that frame activists as criminals. And these laws create fear without needing violence. They make dissent look illegal. They turn patriotism into suspicion. Every citizen becomes a potential threat. Number 2, targeted disappearance. And this tactic shocked me the most because people don't just vanish randomly. They vanish strategically. Activists, community organizers, people with influence, they vanish. And here is what is chilling. The disappearance always happen right before political events, right before election, right before a protest, or right before public speeches. And this disappearance sent a message louder than any public statement. Do not get involved, do not speak, do not resist, do not participate. Number 3, they use control of public fear. And fear becomes government's policy. Fear becomes a political tool. Fear becomes a weapon more powerful than bullets. And people start whispering instead of speaking loudly. People start avoiding political conversations. People tell their children, just keep quiet, don't get involved. And this is exactly how authoritarian rule win. Not through force, but through silence. Tactic number 4, the militarization of politics. In all 3 countries, politics and the military have become one. Campaigns feel like security operations. Opposition's rallies look like a war zone. Police uniforms dominate public gathering. It is not democracy. It is intimidation disguised as order. It is not security. It is control. Not protection, but the fear of enforcement. Number 3, they use this tactic, digital surveillance of the youth. And this is the most modern form of control. Governments are watching social media like never before. Posts are monitored. Comments are analyzed. Online groups are infiltrated. And we often think that surveillance is something Western countries do, but East Africa has quietly adapted the same tools. Everything everything that is being recorded. For example, when Tanzania was protesting, they recorded some things, but the government, the police warned, do not do what? Do not record or do not send these things to the people. Everything from phone records to WhatsApp group is monitored if you are considered politically active. Number 6, they use election as theater. This is the saddest reality. Elections have become performance political theater, a show designed to maintain the illusion of democracy. But behind the scenes, the decisions have already been made. The path is already chosen and the results are already shaped. Instead of democracy creating leaders, leaders now create the democracy that protects them. Now, why is East Africa doing this now? Because many people ask, why now? Why is authoritarianism rising at this moment in history? Why are East African leaders becoming more aggressive, more fearful, and more controlling? The answer becomes clear in my research. And this will shock you. The number 1 reason for this rise in fear politics is not the West, not terrorism, not economics. It is the youths. East Africa's youth have become the biggest threat to dictatorism shift or systems. Not because they are violent, but because the youths are awake. The new generation cannot be lied to, cannot be manipulated by propaganda, do not fear authority the way older generation did. This generation demand accountability. Every protest in Kenya, every online movement in Uganda, every youth uprising in Tanzania, all of them tell the same story. The system is cracking, the old ways ruling no longer. The governments responded not with reform, but with fear. They respond not with dialogue, they are responding with suppression, and they are responding with force. Authoritarianism spreads like a virus. One country uses a tactic, another country copies it, and soon it becomes a new political culture. Uganda normalized open repression. Tanzania normalized election violence, and Kenya normalized disappearance. Together, these patterns create a regional psychological environment, a climate of fear that crosses borders, A message that travels from country to country saying that stay silent or disappear. Now, one fear becomes regional, reversing it becomes harder. People start losing hope. People stop expecting change. People accept repression as normal life, and this is how dictatorship grows. Not through a single leader, but through a cultural that tolerates abuse. Again, we have the economical roots of political fear. To understand authoritarianism in East Africa, you must understand economics, because fear is not just a political tool, it is an economic one. Governments crack down hardest when the economy is unstable, when prices rise, when youth unemployed grows, and when debt becomes unsustainable. And a struggling economy makes leadership panic. A struggling economy makes leaders panic. The panic makes intolerant. And intolerance creates repressions. Across East Africa, economic pressure is exposing leadership insecurity. And insecure leaders always rule through fear, never through confidence. Instead of fixing a country, they fix the people by silencing the people. That's what they are doing. Every dictatorship system or authoritarian system collapses when people unite. And the one thing East African government fear the most is the unity between citizens across borders. Unity between Kenya youth, Ugandan youth, and Tanzanian youth. Because these governments thrive on division. They want citizens to think their struggle are isolated. They want Kenyans to think only Kenya is suffering. They want Tanzanians to think only Tanzania has election violence. They want Ugandan to think only Uganda faces repression. But once the people realize the pattern is regional, the fear loses power. The intimidation loses meaning, and the system becomes exposed. When East African unite, authoritarianism collapses. And that is why the government are doubling their fear machinery right now. They know something is changing among the people. And for the first time in decades, the biggest threats to the ruling class is not political parties, not opposition leaders, but the youths, the ordinary, everyday youths or young East Africans. The youths cannot be bought. The youths cannot be bribed. The youths cannot be silenced with bread or milk. This generation is too informed, too connected, too global, and too bold. The government can block TV, but they cannot block TikTok. They can silence a newspaper, but they cannot silence Twitter spaces. And this is what terrifies the regimes, because once the youths lose fear, the government loses power. Across East Africa, the youths are not just politically angry, but they are economically frustrated. Jobs are scarce, corruption is everywhere, prices are rising, debt is exploding. A young person who is hungry is very dangerous in a corrupt system. A young person with no future is unpredictable. A young person with nothing to lose cannot be intimidated. My Neo-Africa family, I have exposed the tactics, the fear. We have exposed the authoritarian slide. Now, what are the solutions? Because exposing the problem is only the beginning. The true work begins when a people decide what to do next. Now, solution number one, I think we should build a borderless East African youth movement. A Kenyan youth who understands what is happening in Uganda, a Tanzanian youth who connects with Kenyan activists, a Ugandan youth who shares lessons with Tanzanian organizers. The youths must stop seeing their nations as separate struggles, because the system they are fighting is regional. And so the resistance must be regional too. We use the same hashtag, the same message, the same expose, the same day. Solution number two, we document everything. This system survived through secrecy. So the people's resistance must survive through documentation. Record abuses, film arrest, screenshot threats, collect testimony, save evidence safely online. Even if governments deny everything today, evidence becomes ammunition tomorrow. Evidence shapes international pressure. Dictators hate cameras more than protest, because cameras defeat lies. Number three, I think we should educate the masses about their rights. Number four, create safe spaces for political discussions. Number five, use technology as a weapon of truth. Number 6, build economic independence. Number 7, strengthen Pan-African media. Mainstream media is often silenced, intimidated, or bought, but Pan-African digital media cannot be controlled. YouTube channels like This New Africa, independent journalists, citizens, reporters, grassroots storytelling. We must build our own platforms. We must tell our own stories as it is. My final message to my New Africa family and my East African family and all over the Africa: authoritarianism is not our destiny. Fear is not our culture. Oppression is not our identity. We are children of warriors, descendants of liberation movement, and inheritors of African resistance. East Africa has survived colonialism, it has survived dictatorship, it has survived manipulation, and it will survive this moment too, because the truth is out. The people are awake and the system is cracking. And once African rise, there is no force on earth that can stop them. Let's meet on the next episode.